start coaching, sir. Start coaching. So live.
Hmm.
So, very good evening, everyone. On behalf Hospital Professional Association, I welcome all you in this webinar session. This is our third webinar session, and I like to welcome you all the members and participants of this webinar in this session. And we are really privileged that today, as a speaker among us, Professor Dr. Shubhendu Vikas Dotto sir is there. He's a Dean Management Studies, GIMNT, Kolkata. I like to welcome you, sir, in this webinar session. And the topic will be the hospital architecture and overview, highlighting design changes in post-COVID-19. So this is the topic this time. Dr. Shubhendu Vikas Dotto will deliver his talk regarding this. And a short introduction regarding sir before the starting of the session. I would like to short introduction regarding sir in this. So Dr. Dotto is presently a professor and dean of Genesis Institute of Management and
Sound quality
Technology,
খুব
Healthcare.
poor.
He is also a consultant. Professor Dotto has yes. Professor Dotto has almost 20 years of teaching and an overall 8 years of healthcare industry experience. Before joining into academics, he was the regional head of Eastern India, including Bangladesh, Nepal, and Bhutan, of a leading hospital management consultancy from in India. He has been involved in research work for over a period of more than 10 years in various fields, including hospital management areas, especially in healthcare quality, patient satisfaction, and patient safety management. He did his PhD in patient satisfaction and has many paper publications. He has attended numerous national and international conferences organized by various groups. He has also received several national awards for his management teaching. He has also published books in health economics and books on health and hospital system. So I would like to hand over to Dr. Shubhendu Vikas Dotto, sir. So kindly discuss regarding the topic, which is today's webinar
Good
session
evening. Am
regarding
I
this. I
audible?
would hand over the mic to you for your presentation, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir. You're audible. I think there's a little bit of technical error in part of Professor Dr. Shubhendu Vikas Dotto. So just wait for a few minutes. I think there's some technical error was there in the part of Dr. Dotto. I think he will join within few minutes with us again. So just member request all the members to kindly be patient. I think he will join within a few minutes. Yes, sir has already joined. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the net was out. Uh, am I audible?
Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Uh,
Yeah. You're audible, sir. You're audible.
thank you, Dr. Datta, and thank you. Good evening to everybody. Uh, See, as far as hospital architecture and hospital designing is concerned, you all are well aware about how the hospital, and you have been into the hospital. So there is an important saying by Winston Churchill that first we shape our buildings and thereafter we shape us. That means the hospital which we design actually that shapes you, because I'll quote a simple example. If you work in a small nursing home, you grow up with that culture of that small nursing home. If you have work in a big hospital with a good building and good shape, and you try to shape yourself according to the culture of that hospital. So a functional design promotes skill, economy, conveniences, and comforts. A non-functional design can impede activities of all types, detract from quality of care, and raise costs to intolerable levels. Now, whatever design you have in your hospital, that will promote your skill level, your economy level, your comfort level, your convenience, and that gives you, and that will provide a quality of care to the patient. Now, I'll go to the next slide. What are there are a few basic principles of hospital planning. I'll not discuss about the viability of the project, the feasibility of the project, the choosing of the site, the demographic profile. Apart from those principles, we have certain other principles which
Sir,
helps in designing the
sir,
hospital planning. Hello.
sorry to interrupt you. If you look kindly, if you give the full slide. If you-
Hello.
Just to intervene you, sir. Just if you
Huh.
kindly give the full slide presentation,
Hello?
it will be better thing. Full slide, sir.
শুনতে পাচ্ছি না।
Yes, sir. It will be better if you give the full slide presentation, sir. Full slide.
Which one?
Screen presentation. Sir, যদি একটু full screen presentation যদি করে দেন।
আচ্ছা, full screen.
Full screen presentation.
মানে আমি স্ক্রিনটাকে ফুল করার মতো?
স্যার ওই নিচে যে স্যার এফ পেনটা আছে মানে ফুল যে ফুল হ্যাঁ এবার ঠিক আছে স্যার
হ্যাঁ
এবার ঠিক আছে ইটস ওকে স্যার
এবার ঠিক আছে?
প্রেজেন্টেশন হ্যাঁ আগেরটা স্যার ঠিক ছিল গতকাল
ও আগেরটা এটা ঠিক আছে?
আগে ছিল ওটা ঠিক ছিল হ্যাঁ ইটস ওকে স্যার ইটস ওকে
না ইটস ওকে। এখন দেখা যাচ্ছে?
স্যার এই start slide presentation. Start slide presentation.
হ্যাঁ
Start slide presentation.
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
Slide presentation is
আচ্ছা।
different, sir. Slide presentation.
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
Yes, sir. Start from beginning. Yes, sir.
ঠিক আছে এটা?
Yes, sir. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
হ্যাঁ
Thank
So,
you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So we have certain principles of hospital planning apart from what we know actually, the feasibility study, the viability study, the economic profile, the demographic profile, the choosing of site. I'll not discuss on that because we'll be more concentrating on the COVID-19 issues, post-COVID-19 issues of the hospital planning. But before going to that, we will have a brief outline about hospital planning and hospital designing. What we think of the basic principles of hospital planning is protection, separation, environment, monitoring, and integration. The protection, what do we protection? Protection of patient and staff, separation of activities. You cannot mix up housekeeping activities with dietary system. You cannot mix up medical activities with insurance activities. So all these activities have to be separated and department wise. What should be the environment of the hospital? Whatever you hospital plan, should be the environment should be therapeutic and healing. We will discuss vividly on this, what is therapeutic and what is healing. And monitoring, this is the main vital part of a hospital planning, is the traffic movement. I hope you all know about what I mean about traffic. Traffic means your patient, your staff, your doctors, your housekeeping, everything, whatever, visitors, whatever. And lastly, the integration of all departments. Though we are talking about the separation of all the activities or the separation of the departments, but those departments has to be integrated. And rightly, Emerson Goebel, a very renowned architect, he has designed many hospitals. He rightly said, the separate all departments, yet keep them all together. Separate types of traffic, yet save steps for everybody. That is all there is to the hospital planning. That means all departments should be separated. It should be monitored. It should be integrated. And above all, the protection of the staff and patient and the environment of the hospital. Next, what should be the building features of the hospital? It should be efficient and cost effective. It should be flexible, environment friendly, accessible, good traffic movement, safety, security. And what we talk about, the green architecture, this is the latest development of the hospital building features, and which deal about the energy savings and water and waste management. I'll take up your questions later at the end of my presentation, so you can note down whatever you have your questions there. And now we come to the efficient and cost effective. Efficiency of the hospital depends on your staff, your logistics, and your space planning. Thus, how best you can plan your space and how best you can locate your support services, that gives or that counts for the efficiency of the hospital. And if your hospital functions efficiently, that in turn gives a cost effectiveness. So what we can do is, you should have a new hospital, an efficient logistic system, separate elevators. Now you have the pneumatic chutes. Your OPD functions should be in one flow, so that there will be restricted movement of OPD patients coming for treatment, and the visitors movement should be restricted into a particular area. And efficient handling of food supplies, waste and soil material, this should have a separate entry and separate exit. And the best thing is minimize travel distance, which promotes staff efficiency. That means each floor, I have seen hospitals with 600 beds, 1000 beds, and they are being distributed into 9 or 10 floors. And believe me or not, those floors, each floors are mini hospitals. What we account in and around our city, those floors consist of around 80-85 beds, and they are mini hospitals. They are having everything in place in that particular floor, so that the staff movement is being minimized, and that gives you the efficiency of the staff. Then comes the flexibility of the hospital building. Flexibility, I'm not not talking about you pull the hospital and it will be big. The flexibility in terms of expandable, changeable, and integratable. Expandable means you can expand the facilities when there is any disaster. You have to group the functional areas with similar system requirements in the same platform. You have to have a modular concept of space planning with easily accessibility and modified mechanical and electrical systems. You have to have all the functional spaces into one operation, into one floor, from the standpoint of patient, staff, and supply, such as locating the surgical intensive care unit, ITU or ICU, whatever you call, adjacent to the OT chutes. And above all, you should be open-ended with well-planned directions for future expansion. That has to be, you have to have that open-mindedness, that you can change the just for a crisis, in a way of crisis, you can change your OPD into a general ward. That has to be, that open mindedness, that expandability, that intricatable idea should be there when we talk about flexibility. Then comes the last, then comes the most important thing is environment. That what should be the environment of a hospital? It should be clean, sanitized, aesthetic, and therapeutically maintained, and healing environment. Clean, everybody can understand what I'm talking about. Now, aesthetic, you could the aesthetic sense of a hospital building means the color coding of the hospital, the color of the hospital, the color of the dress of the staff you are having. You should have a separate identity of colors for the staff, for the doctors, for the housekeepers. You should have, have a different color for designated for the wards. The pediatric wards should have a light, beautiful color. The obstetric wards, the surgical wards should have a different colors which are soothing to the patients, because this color and details and scaling and proportion each has a direct effect on mental status of health of the patient. A lot of studies have been done in this field, particular field, and there should be ample daylight, textures, artwork, as much as artworks, murals, signages, and the interiors should be well designed so that the patient can move around and have a mindset of that, yes, I am in my house rather than in a hospital. There should be, the bright, open, generously scaled public spaces, outdoor views, and it should be, this point is very important, that there as much as possible outdoor views from every patient bed. That means the patient is lying on the bed, and with the windows, whatever they have, they should clearly have a view of the outside. I have been to in a hospital in the last few months back actually, a general case. I went to his cabin. When I just opened the curtain, what I could see is the wall just behind the window, and that is very irritating scene. The patient himself, he was saying, don't open that window, because you could see only the wall and dirty wall, not even colored, dirty wall. So that should not be, the idea of the patient room. Or if you don't have that, suppose if you cannot provide that, you should have alternatively pictures of natural scenes in the rooms, which can also be helpful. Designing of wards with appropriate pictures and murals, which must sync with patient therein. You can put a baby playing. What we do is a picture of a baby, a picture of a beautiful child into a patient who will be obstetric patient. She will be delivering. She is in a delivery state, and you can put some beautiful pictures into the pediatric wards. Children playing in a ground which has been artificially maintained greenery. So you can plan accordingly what should be the environment of the hospital, and that is a very important. That gives the aesthetic and therapeutically maintained and a healing environment. This is a healing environment. Now comes the accessibility part. Now, this accessible part, what we have learned in primary healthcare, that is not, I'm not talking about. Within the hospital, the patient should be accessible. Patients should access whatever they wish. They can have a movement, they can approach, and they can adapt to areas of basic facilities. What I'm trying to point it out is they can easily use the areas. What they can do, they can easily go to the nursing station, they can call to the nursing station, they can go to, suppose in the lobby the patient has been waiting for their call, they can easily can access the basic facilities such as toilets, drinking water, canteen, wide sidewalks and corridors for two wheelchairs to pass easily. Grades are, that means the slides, grades are flat enough to allow easy movement. Marking glass walls and doors to make their presence obvious. Sorry. Patient, if required, can access the park for strolling. This is accessibility. And another most important thing is accessibility in terms of calling any housekeeping or nurse for any personal requirement. Which, there are examples. You might be experiencing that. If you go into a patient cabin, you will find a big pillar inside, and that becomes a barrier between the patient bed and the toilet. He has to go around that pillar and to use the toilet. So while planning the architecture, while designing that, while studying the drawing of architecture, you should be careful, or one should be careful that such type of pillars or such type of barriers doesn't come between the patients and the that means the toilets or whatever the basic needs of the patient. I have also experienced, I have also seen that the patient lying on a bed, and he or she has to move around and go to the switchboard and put on or put off or on the switch, and that is also that even that is not on the head side of the patient. So I'm talking about those accessibility to in terms of the patients and the facilities. Next, the traffic movement. This traffic movement, I have told about the traffic. Those who are the traffic, the patient, the visitors, the staffs, the doctors, and everybody, whatever who are been into the hospital campus. That should be controlled. Traffic movement should be decent. It should be soundless, and every traffic should be separate. They should have a separate movement. OPD patients should not interfere in the IPD functional areas. Visitors should not directly route into the IPD floor. Movement of food and clean supplies be separated from recyclables and the soiled materials. You should have different lifts to carry patient, to carry visitors, and to carry the doctors. As much as feasible, patient transfer be avoided during visiting hours. Transfer of cadavers or transfers of dead bodies to and fro from the morgue be out of sight of the patient and visitors, and dedicated service elevators for deliveries, food and building maintenance service. I'm talking about these traffic movement, which should be controlled, decent, soundless, and separate. And next comes the safety and security. Now, safety, security, we talk about patient safety, which has been very highlighting topic of patient safety, and entire healthcare is working on how best we can offer the patient safety. So patient safety and security has to be looked into in terms of theft, infection, disaster, fire, protection of patient, staff, assets, and drugs. You should be careful. We have enough security measures to protect all this. Control of infection. This also comes under safety measures. Control of infection, control of fire, disaster, violent or unstable. But there are patients who are violent and unstable, and this has been, you have been reading to the newspaper during this COVID-19 stage. Many patients have been violent and unstable, and they ran out of the hospital. Many hospitals, patients have come out from the hospital and having no security in place. That should be taken care of. Tagging of patients, safety, and staff and visitors. You should have a tagging system of patients, staff, and visitors. Even the visitors should also be tagged, because during visiting hours, if you work in a big hospital, it is very difficult to monitor the visitors who has been going. Even though you have a security in place, but they manage the security and go inside the patient room or IPD. So you should have a tagging system. Tagging system, that means the patient visitors who comes into and asks for a particular bed to be visited by him. So that there should be a number which should tag with that patient bed, and at the end of the visiting hours, if you don't find that particular number of the number tag with the visitor, you can go around and search for that visitor, that he is in the patient, it is in the, he is in the patient room. Alarm for fire, patient calling, any emergency disaster. Patient calling alarm system. If a patient is in emergency, he should have that calling system. And this for patients, staff, doctors, and housekeepers. Everybody should have separate color dress for during the duty hours. And last but not the least is a camera installation for supervision. Camera installation for supervision. Now, what we are talking about, this I have been giving into you basic, basic hospital planning idea, how you will go for what you look into for planning a hospital, or drawing an architect, giving an inputs to the architect about the basic know-how of how the hospital should be designed. Now, what we talk about now is the next new concept is the green hospital. What is this green hospital? You cannot color the hospital, the outside world green color and say this is green hospital. No. Green hospital is a concept which enhances patient well-being, aids the curative process while utilizing natural resources in an efficient, environment-friendly manner. These are some certain basic benefits, and there are areas which are focused into. What are the benefits? This reduces patient recovery time. Now, how this is benefited? This reduces patient recovery time. Patient recovery time, in turn, the ALS is also reduced. Average length the stay of the patient is also reduced. The bed turnover is increased, and that increases the revenue. So in that way, you can be benefited. Eliminate sick building syndrome for both patients and staff. The sick building syndrome, that means this as a syndrome for the patients and the staff which they develop while working in a hospital which has the similar type of color, similar type of working culture. They develop a sick building syndrome within the working within a building. Reduces stress levels in staff, thus improving quality care. Lower energy, 20 to 40%, it has been calculated that 20 to 40% energy has been lowered, and water consumption is also reduced 35 to 40%. Better indoor air quality. But what are the areas for green design which will lead to these benefits? One is lighting, the proper natural light. As much as natural light should come into the building. The indoor air quality should be maintained. Green housekeeping. Green housekeeping means you should avoid all chemicals to be used. You should have all natural products to clean your floors, clean your hospitals, clean and green interior building materials, garden and landscapes. Garden and landscapes. This has been now the hospital building has 60% greenery and 40% constructed area. Mainly the greenery are been more conceptually integrated in hospital planning. Now these are the certain areas for the green hospital. This indoor flooring has to be such that they should not release indoor pollutants. So what we can do is minimize use of carpets, maximize daylight, and optimize artificial lighting requirement. We have to have as much as daylight, and that daylight and the sunlight, whatever is sunlight, has a direct effect when it falls, and the vitamin D has been optimized in a human body when you are exposed to direct sunlight. And it has been also proved that vitamin D prevents from COVID-19. Ensure hospital surfaces have the property of repelling or resisting the growth of pathogenic germs. Use of zero VOC volatile organic compounds as interior materials. The paints and other which has smell of the arsenic as a smell in the paint which we often use it for painting the doors and the windows, that has to be avoided. High density polyethylene products for plumbing and roofing should be used. Installation of permanent entryway system to capture dust particle like slotted system, grades of grills at all primary entries. Use of high reflected roofing. Installation of temperature humidity monitor, because this humidity monitoring system should be automatically integrated, and you should have a system to electronic system to adjust that within the building conditions. And last but not the least is concrete building material to be mixed with industrial byproduct that fly ash, stone dust, which gives a cooling effect to and soothing effect within the room. If you use those fly ash bricks, it has been seen that the temperature of the interior of the room comes down. I hope you can hear me. Hello? 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 Can you hear me? Am I audible? Hello? Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
You're
Am I audible? শোনা যাচ্ছে ভয়েস ভীষণ
audible, sir. You're audible.
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে
Sir.
Next, what we there's this actually this green building are being used for energy savings. The maximum use of natural light will give you this natural light and the solar energy. This there are in places, and government of India has been giving subsidy for this using of solar energy converted to thermal and electrical energy, and the green power, that is the biogas and the biofuels. Now, whatever the waste materials that is generated within the hospital, that can be used as biogas and biofuels for that again can be used in the kitchen. So these are called green powers, and solar energy, as I've told you, that can be converted to thermal and electrical energy. Construction of the building aligned at an angle to the sun. Now, east and west, you should avoid putting glass on the eastern side or the western side during the sunset and during the sunrise. That should be avoided because those are very, those time during east when the sun rises, and during in the west when the sun sets down. Sun rays are very, they produce heat, so that has to be avoided. Shades on the south side block unwanted direct sunlight while reflecting light on the ceiling of the interior. This in turn will lead to proper lighting, heating, cooling, and ventilation process of the hospital. Building orientation to face north and south for maximum use of natural light. We should try to face or orient our building to face north or south. Big courtyards for increased air movement at daylight. Big windows must be located in such a manner so as to ensure building ventilation and increase access to natural light, which will reduce heat. And minimum use of glass in east and west to avoid unnecessary and abnormal heating of the building. This is how we can save our energy. And lastly, for the green hospital is water and waste management. Whatever waste is been generated in the hospital, we should recycle, and as I've told you in the earlier slide, we will convert it into biofuel and biogas. The water treatment, the rainwater harvesting, the sewage water should be recycled, purified, and again back into the hospital use. And the paramedical waste product also can be reused and recycled. And wastewater and the rainwater harvesting as a primary uh, management system should be developed within the area of the hospital so that it can be the water wastage should be reduced. This is a plan of a hospital or the outpatient department and other things in patient department. To this is a plan of a cabin of a hospital. Now I have given something, some data regarding the green hospital and versus the cost. 2% investment in green building design results in savings of 20% of construction cost. The US Environmental Protection Energy estimates that $4 investment per square feet in green buildings nets a $58 benefit per square feet over 20 years. According to survey, hospitals depending on artificial lighting spend more than 3 times as compared to natural lighting. So automatically, if you can uh, make a system that more natural lights gets into your hospital, so you can save the other lighting what you have been using. Hospitals, Indian hospitals documented evidences on energy conservation, reducing electricity utilization by 27% and saving up to rupees 40 lakh rupees per annum. There are other also, Jahangir Hospital, examples of Jahangir Hospital, they have saved rupees 46.25 lakhs with an investment of mere 27.95 lakhs. And the hospital, through its innovative strategies, reduced electrical energy consumption by 12.66%, water energy consumption by 53.9%, specific energy consumption for air conditioning by 17.9% and lighting by 50%. The maximum consumption of electricity is in air conditioning. I will give an example. There are AIMS facilities which have been coming up in the country, across the country. They are implementing green architecture and green engineering to save the electricity consumption. Similarly, there are other hospitals which have been adopted this green design. The Beach Candy, Jaslok, Hinduja, Batra Hospital, Fortis and Apollo, they are also trying to save to the green design. Now, having said all this, the basic, giving you the basic idea, and it's very difficult to give the architecture and design concept in few 10, 12 slides. To recapitulate, I have given you the basic idea to be keeping in mind while you design the hospital. Now, what we have been experiencing for the last 6 months is the COVID-19 coronavirus, and this has a great impact on the changes of hospital design and architecture. Sorry. Now, this is a brief, outline of certain pandemics which have been occurring, and the death toll and the what is the type of human host and the time period. Are given a brief this thing of recent is SARS, Ebola, MERS. Though Ebola was in Africa, not in here, but it has been on a called as pandemic, declared as pandemic by WHO. Now, what has been affected by all over the world is COVID-19. This coronavirus, and many people have been died. Over 2.16 lakh mark we have reached, and this hospital infrastructure in India is being stretched to the limits, and it has been really stretched to the many hospitals. There are scarcity of beds for general treatment. All beds have been changed to COVID beds, and the ICML has given a guideline, and we all the hospitals are working on based on those guidelines to ensure that their doctors, nurses, and frontline workers are safe and protected. Now, this has affected. Now, this has been a alarming sign for us, for the designers, for the hospital planners, and for the hospital administrators to plan the hospital in a new form. In overnight, you cannot change the hospital building. So what you have to do, you have to have your system in place within the limit of the hospital, which has been stretched to its limits. In the past, what we designers have always been kept in mind the safety of the patients and the caregivers. Our experts predict in COVID-19, post-COVID-19, that there should be increased emphasis on patient safety in hospital design, and there should be a changes to be incorporated in healthcare facility configuration. Now, there are certain expected design changes in hospitals. I'll now discuss about some expected design changes. As you might be facing that, we and government ICMR have been telling government of India, state governments have been advising that as much as possible avoid going to hospitals and going outside. Why? Now, video conferencing will be the OPD solutions. Previously, what we used to do, we used to go to a doctor, we used to sit in the lobby and wait for our turn to see that particular doctor, and there would have been a big lobby, everybody was sitting, everybody is sitting there, and they are waiting for their turn. Now, post-COVID, what will be is there will be video consultations, and more video consultations, and OPD being less crowded. Maybe later on, what we'll see is proportionally sinking in comparison in layout design. The OPD design, you have been given, seen many big hospitals, they used to have a huge lobby, huge sitting area, and patients were crowded, waiting for their turn to see a particular doctor. This scenario, this scene will not be seen next time, because video conferencing and video consultations will be taking place. Now, for this video consultations and video conference, what you have to have in place, strong IT infrastructures. You have to have strong IT infrastructures. You have to have virtual OPD rooms. You have to have strong AV controls, audiovisual controls, and other available technologies, video chat, virtual reality headsets, to be incorporated, and this in turn can boost the medical tourism. How? Because now a Bangladeshi patient will not be flowing in to India, or a Nepal patient or a patient from Sri Lanka will not fly in to India to have our OPD consultations. Once they are through with the OPD consultations with video conferencing, and initial test reports have been shared with the teleradiology or the systems, and that patient, for their procedural intervention, they will fly in. So that will attract more patients, because the cost will reduce, because traveling to India, having a OPD consultation, staying there, doing reports and everything will take as a cost interference. So that will be reduced, and they will come for a procedure intervention. So video conferencing OPD solutions will be expected design changes in post-COVID scenario. Next, review of air conditioning system. This is very important. Now, this COVID-19 is sprayed by droplets and not really airborne in the sense that it will not float around in the air for very long. But the next virus may not be so. It can be airborne. So this air condition, what we do in air conditioning system is this: we recirculate this air conditioned air and use this air again and recirculate that air. But now what will be our system, that this air, whatever is been recirculated, has to be thrown out and fresh air has to be taken in, and that has to be recirculated into the air conditioning system. So it is suggested that hospital lobbies can become non-air conditioned, semi-open, comfortable and well ventilated space. Thus you can reduce the cost also. So what we see in the air conditioning system in the hospital lobby, that has to be non-air conditioned, has to be open and well ventilated. People will tend to feel safer than in air conditioned ones. This has been tried out successfully in some hospitals with success. So the virus spreading through the recirculation of air conditioned air, the use of air conditioning in non-clinical areas should be rethought and revisited. So we should not have air conditioning system in non-clinical areas. More use of fresh air. More use of fresh air should be taken into the hospital. Designs will have to ensure proper zoning and exhaust system to take out air, especially from intensive care area and isolation area. This is very important. The isolation areas and intensive care areas, the exhaust system should have a proper zoning system so that it can be thrown out. But while throwing out into the atmosphere, this should not be contaminated. That has to be taken care of. Exhausted air will have to be let out in the atmosphere after proper treatment and filtration so that the microbes are not let open and pose danger to others outside the building. Higher air humidity can reduce the airborne transmission of viruses. This has been proved. The higher air humidity reduces the airborne transmission of viruses. Next, we will be using the use of antibacterial material. Now, antibacterial material need to be considered for elevators, washroom fittings, hardware like door handles, railings, door knobs for frequent touch points. That means what we have, while opening a door, you should have to touch that handle. So that frequently touched points should be taken care of, and you have to use more antibacterial material. It has been proved, and the research shows that copper has maximum antimicrobial properties. The toxicity mechanism of copper ions curtail infections spread through touch surfaces. It might be slightly expensive, but adoption may start from installing the same in isolation facilities. Mainly all the steel and designed handles should be replaced by copper handles because experts suggest copper has more antimicrobial properties. Next, use of non-porous materials, because the spores or porous materials will give shelter to virus and bacteria. So non-porous material should be used, which can be wipeable, cleanable, and these materials should not affect by regular fumigation and spraying of disinfectants. So these non-porous materials should be used. The products that would gain application would be PVC, UPVC, glass, polycarbonate, high-pressure laminates. These are plastics coverings up and which look like marbles, which can put up on the walls without any pores, without any joints. Gypsum-based products would probably get modified with addition of lamination layers. Use of cloth fabric as furniture, upholstery, and curtains will decline because this cloth fabric and furniture upholsteries, and this curtains gives shelter to viruses. Easy to clean and sanitize synthetic materials will be used widely. Next, touch-free controls. You have been experienced in offices that while standing, the door opens automatically, and that technology will be should be adapted while going into the toilets, and the taps. When you put your hands under the taps, the water flows in. These technologies, sensor-based taps, temperature control, free control of lighting, and functional hospitals with minimum shutdown time can also easily install sensor taps in toilets, occupancy sensors for lights. If you are the lift system, mainly what we do is we touch the lift knob switches. That has to be voice control. Suppose you want to go to fifth floor, you have to speak fifth floor. The lift, the system, the computerized system automatically recognize, yes, there is a visitor or there is a patient inside the lift who will get down at fifth floor. So automatically the lift stands on the fifth floor. So that touch-free control system has to be installed. That is called e-switching and automatic doors. Innovations in foot-operated latches and handles can easily be developed. Automatic sliding doors, of what we were talking about, or swing doors, can be incorporated in place of conventional doors in high-traffic areas. Smart facade glazing systems, which allow occupants to electronically control the quantity and quality of the daylight into the interiors, will be explored. Such glass technology allows doing away with the fabric blinds which harbor germs, because more use of fabric, more use of cloth curtains, more using of upholsteries should be curtailed, because those give shelter to the viruses and are very difficult to clean and sanitize. Now, flexibility of design. This is also very important. You have to have a flexibility in designing, ability to quickly convert the regular beds into an ICU, because this all the beds. Now there has been, now in the small hospitals or small nursing homes, you have been saying that ICU beds are specialized beds and the general beds are non-specialized beds, are simple beds. But now the concept has to be changed. That all the general beds and will be of same quality of ICU beds, so that the general bed can be immediately transferred or converted into ICU ward. Compartmentalization strategies to enable negative pressure in a certain inpatient ward zone. The future hospitals should also have more flexibility for pandemics and other outlier events that create temporary surges in demand every 5 or 10 years. In the chart which I have given, if you go through that, you'll be noticing that every 5 or 10 years or 15 years there is a pandemic, and you have to be prepared for that. So you have to have in mind while planning or designing your hospital that there should be a flexibility in design of the hospital. You have to be flexible. So the most important area is the parking areas, which can be designed in a way that they could be converted to a containment zone, which we have done in Kolkata in certain big hospitals. The parking areas are converted into containment zone. Some hospitals can convert their parking garages, basements, or multi-level car parks into temporary COVID treatment facilities, as is already being done in many parts of the world. And it has been proven that these car parking areas, which is a huge lot, which is a huge area, that can be converted into a containment zone. A wider corridors. We have, previously what we designed is a stretcher can go, or two stretcher can go, but no, that has to be changed. Minimum current situation is 8 feet minimum width, Now it has to increase more than 10 feet, at least 10 feet corridors, and number of people that can be allowed to be waiting in the hospital lobbies may be limited to certain maximum with specific minimum spacing between seats. So future waiting lobbies could be in smaller clusters. That has to be clustered in a small or two seats, and there should be a barrier. There should be a cluster sitting, not a group sitting. Previously, what we have a group sitting, and now that has to be changed into cluster sitting. So you have to have more space. Now, design of emergency and sitting areas. This emergencies should be redesigned. These that prevent the spread of the virus. Emergency originally designed for patient triaging and attendant waiting now needs to be redesigned to prevent the spread of the virus. And now the most important thing is that while moving into airports or moving into the state railway stations, we have, while going to visiting a temple, we used to go through a tunnel that was called as metal detector. Now you have to have apart from metal detector, some hospitals do keep the metal detector. Now, adding to that, you should have a sanitizing tunnel and thermal fever screening cameras in place in the lobby where from the patient and the visitors are entering. There should be separate complex to treat positive cases and facility to quarantine the staff in every shift. Your staff can be infected. You never know, because there may be a carrier and there may be a patient who is a carrier. So you never know that. So your staff may be infected. So you have to have a space where you can quarantine the staff, and you have to have a separate space for to treat a positive case. Suppose while passing through sanitizing tunnel or thermal fever screening, that particular patient or the particular visitor might be recording a higher temperature, which is a normal. So immediately that visitor should be identified. That visitor should be separately quarantined or separately be into a sitting area where he has been observed about the temperature and other symptoms. A separate doctor should be called in to take care of. So these are the things, the emergency and the sitting and the lobby or the reception area should have in place. You have to have more sitting spaces so that individual seats can be provided at distance to maintain physical distancing. The nursing stations should also have more space so that each nurse can maintain a physical distance. And now with the COVID-19 coming, been infected into place now, this pandemic, you have to have a distancing concept. The new design needs to give more space between beds. We used to have 10 feet or 6 feet between two beds and from the center of the beds as per the rule. But you have to have more distance, more space between the beds. Instead of placing ICU beds as a common word, design will have individual cabins with proper air circulation system. Now, what we used to have, 10 beds or 15 beds or 20 beds into a room with a minimum distance between those beds. Now, what we have to have, you have to have individual cabins for ICU beds with proper air circulation system in place to avoid any infection spread. Now, there are some 10 other considerations which we should also look into. Public places in hospital will move toward more automation to mitigate contagion with all types of touchless technology, which we have been we discussed. Automated patient tags, advanced check-in and security, introduction of more opportunities for hand washing and sanitizer. This has to be in every floor, in everywhere, wherever possible. there should be opportunity for hand washing and sanitization. In addition to the metal detectors, we have to have temperature screening and UV disinfectant tunnels. Now, the main these are very common things we can easily uh, put into place in our existing hospitals. We can have a sanitizing tunnel. We can have more automation. We can replace those areas of where we touch more into by copper handles or copper installation. But what we have to have the waiting area by creating a waiting nooks. What is this? Waiting area should be eliminated. Traditional waiting area should be eliminated by creating alternative waiting nooks. Now, these patients should be into spreaded into that floor, and this lets the patients be somewhere else in the building, the yoga library or somewhere watching a lecture, instead of sitting around on the same floor with other ill people. Patient and public, if starts thinking of public spaces more like home and less like someone's else place, they will be more vested in treating it right, not like throwing dirty napkins on the floor, which will make it safer for everyone. Now, what I'm talking about, waiting area, what you used to see in the hospital is that every person, including the patient and the visitors, used to sit in a area designated for OPD, rather than, and we say waiting area, rather than that traditional waiting area, we should have waiting nooks, a small library, a small, yoga, a small yoga area, a small lecture theater, small, where the patient or the visitors can move around and they can be tracked by RFID technology, that is patient identification technology, radio frequency identification technology, where we can track as soon as the patient name and other things has been announced. There should be a mechanism of the patient's tagging system, and there will be clicking sound, and the patient can identify that yes, I have been called for in the reception area. Rather than sitting into the same floor with the same person with the other ill people, they can move around for the patients who can do that. Now, I'm not talking about a patient lying on the bed. A patient has been with heavy injury, or a physically disabled patient. I'm not talking about that. These patients and the public and the visitors, they will start thinking that these spaces are like my homes. I can move around and I can see. They can move around they can go to the garden, and because of this RFID radio frequency identification technology, they will not be lost. They can be tagged in or they can be tracked. So these things can be incorporated. Physical distancing, open spaces enable and encourage people to spread out. There should be an architect should think of designing those areas, mainly the waiting areas, into such a space which we discussed earlier. Full service convention halls could be converted most quickly by using, now these hospitals, what we are talking about, conversion of conventional hospitals most quickly by using guest rooms as patient rooms, lobbies as intake and registration areas, conference room as central medical supply, restaurants as staff dining, classroom and tutorial rooms as specialized care facilities. What I'm talking about is, during this COVID areas, when you require more beds, more beds to be required to put in. So within the hospital campus, you have guest rooms, you have big lobbies, you have conference rooms, you have classroom, you have tutorials, you have auditoriums that can be changed into. These auditoriums, tutorial rooms, classrooms can be changed into specialized care facilities. Conference rooms in your hospital can be changed into central medical supply. Lobbies, big lobbies and the reception areas can be changed into for intake and registration of the registration of the patients. Guest rooms, what we have, or the quarters what we have, can immediately be changed into patient rooms. Now, this takes, this has been studied. This takes at least 10 to 14 days to convert. So we can do that. If keeping that, what I've told in earlier slide, that you have to be flexible in expanding your hospital. That has to, you have to be open-minded. Yes, we can change our guest room. We can change our guest room till we meet the crisis. We can change our conference room till we meet the crisis. Now you have been saying the shipping containers, 20 feet long big shipping containers, which are turned into biocontainment pods and are easily deployable in cities around the world. While each unit functions autonomously, individual pods can be connected by an inflatable structure to create modular configurations. These two, suppose a containment shipping container can be joined with other shipping container with inflatable structure, and which can act as a barrier, which can be act as a connecting point between two shipping containers, and would contain all the equipment needed for two patients, including ventilators. The best part, they can be deployed in just a few hours in parking lots. That is very important. The parking lots of the self-standing field hospital. You have a huge garden area. I've told about that 60% of the land area are being used for greenery. So there that can be installed, and containment zone can be developed within that shipping containers. That shipping containers can be put in, and that can be sanitized, and the patient can be put into for containment. Suitable flooring for emergency healthcare needs include seamless rubber or sheet vinyl that aids in infection control, cleanability, and slip resistance. These type of rubber material, vinyl rubber materials, controls infection because these are very plain surface, non-skiddable. They are slip resistant but plain. They have no joints, possible joints, and this bacteria and viruses develop and shelters into these joints, so that can be put into. Now I have given you some this is Cura connected units for respiratory elements. Mainly these COVID, whatever is COVID, SARS, MARS, these are respiratory elements, upper respiratory tract infection. So we have respiratory troubles. So you have to have ventilators. You have to have a oxygen supply, so that can be, see this they have been using this shipping containers placed into the corridor, into the garden, into the open area of the hospital, and connected units for respiratory elements in open source design developed by a team of architect, engineer, doctors, and military experts, currently being built in Milan, in Italy. As you know, this Italy was the highest recorded COVID patients. So this is how you can do this. Now there is also this guest room, how original it was looking into, that has been changed into patient room. This original guest room is been changed into patient room. Nothing else. This patient, nothing has been done actually. Though whatever it is, the maximum furniture has been removed, and this bed and other things has been kept alike. And instead of there is no guest camera inside the guest room, a camera has been installed, and other things have been all the same. So you can very well change this guest room. Possible practice of converting existing buildings into field hospital. This diagram looks at the conversion of a standard hotel room or the guest room. And these are the tents which have been developed. The tent. Within this tent, you have beds and other equipments placed into, and that can be very well put into the garden area or the lobby or the parking lot, parking area, or the basement where you can treat the patient or can be made into containment zone. This is a picture of a container, shipping container, and this is telemedicine. What we were talking about, the X-ray and other things have been this been into the computer, and they have been discussing with telemedicine. These are the toilets and other things have been which have been digitalized toilet. If you put your hands beneath this tap, the water automatically falls in. As you know, this COVID virus, the coronavirus, leaves on the metals for a longer time. So avoid using taps and other things so that we can restrict the spaces. Thank you all. And these are the very specific, discussing all the design changes and architectural changes in post-COVID scenario is a very long and time-taking discussions. But still, I've tried to incorporate certain immediate changes which you can, as an administrator or would be administrator, you can very well change your hospital and adapt certain changes in the post-COVID scenario. Now you have post-COVID, you will be we will be having our vaccines, and we never know that within 10 years there will be some other pandemic which we will be facing. So we have to be open-minded. We have to be flexible in expanding our and using our spaces. So thank you all. We can have now questions.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot regarding your quite informative presentation and really innovative measures you have shown to us today. Starting from the barriers we are facing right now and what the changes has to be taken, what the changes to be incorporated inside the hospital is definitely it's a quite learning for us. It's a really learning experience for our students and those professionals who are presently working in the hospitals. Definitely they will talk to their management and try to incorporate those things. Starting from the video conferencing aspect, what you are told that it is a very important aspect which has to be incorporated with the hospital due to this contactless facing with the doctor, with the patient. You have also given tremendous exposure regarding the air condition management to be done, regarding incorporating of fresh air which has to be incorporated inside the hospital. You have also asked to carry out these antibacterial measures to be installed in the hospital, especially copper measures, non-porous measures, which becomes a non-bacterial carrier to the patient and to the hospitals. You have also given special emphasis regarding the different technology which leads to contactless technology like this doors and lifts which has to be incorporated. This is definitely the learning process and it has to be incorporated in this pandemic situation. Hopefully in coming years what pandemic we are coming to face we do not know, but we have to be prepared and this thing has to be incorporated as well as possible. We have also emphasized on the curtains which has to be removed and some another thing which has to be installed inside the hospitals definitely. And everyone should be flexible that you have quite mentioned that flexibility should be in the part of the hospital managers, that what that to change the guest rooms, to change the conference rooms into the to accommodate the patient is definitely it's a need of power and has to be incorporated as early as possible and it will be done in a very few days of time. So definitely is a need of our parking facilities to be area of triage and where the patient can be kept, especially for those isolated patient can be kept. In fact, nowadays what actually the things which is given is quarantine hospital. That is veterinary technology hospitals. The hotels are also being taken as a part of the whole hospital to keep the patients, especially in the corporate hospitals are also hiring hotels for keeping the patients. And we've also emphasized on wider corridors regarding the cluster cities, which also is adequate place and has to be incorporated. Definitely is a need of our. We've also emphasized regarding emergency designing, regarding this incorporation of sanitizing tunnel. Definitely is also one of the important needs which has to be done as early as possible because many from different areas the patients are coming to the hospitals, the staff out to the hospitals. Definitely it will act as a barrier to prevent transmission of the disease. Also give special emphasis on the incorporation of radio frequency to track the patient in the waiting area. Definitely it is one of the learning process and it has to be incorporated as early as possible. We have also given special emphasis to convert the guest conference classroom to accommodate the amount of patient of this, especially the COVID situation. We have also been specialized on the shipping countries. Definitely one of the innovative technology has to be incorporated where the patient can feel the area, the fresh air outside the hospital. Definitely this thing has already discussed that this thing is already been
Exactly.
incorporated in Italy. I think
Yes, yes.
definitely in India they will think for this and try to they also try to encourage this. So many thank you, sir. I think if there will be any question in the chat section when our teams will go through the presentation, any in their definitely they will let us know, and we will definitely through the question to be answered from your side in chat. So many
Yeah, yeah.
thanks, sir,
The,
for
yeah,
your
the
presentation and
sound,
whatever
the
information you
sound
shared
quality is
with us. And
sound
definitely
qu-
it's a learning.
sound quality is very poor. This আওয়াজটা খুব মানে এত কেটে যাচ্ছে বোঝা মুশকিল.
Yes, the sound quality is very poor.
Sound quality is very poor. I cannot get you.
The sound quality is very
I cannot get you. I cannot. আমি আপনি
thank you
যেটা
for your
বলছেন.
yeah. I'm audible
Not clear.
right
Not
now.
clear. Cracking of your sound. সাউন্ডটা ভীষণ ক্র্যাক করছে.
Yeah. Tracking of the net connectivity problem, I think. Yes. Sound connection. So
ভীষণ ক্র্যাক করছে.
thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I'd love to have such type of presentations on different topics,
Yeah.
and yeah, as
Definitely.
and when you'll be requiring me, I'll be very happy to discuss regarding this topics, such topics, and
Thank
yes,
you, sir. Thank you, sir.
thanks a lot, thanks a lot.
Thanks, sir.
Uh,
And
if
definitely we
if
have.
yeah, since the sound quality is very poor, if any student or anybody has some questions, he can directly call me or can
Sure, sir.
write
Sure,
me on
sir.
WhatsApp, and I'll definitely answer those questions.
Sure, sir. Many thanks,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
So we are ending the
Thank you.
session today right now.
Yeah,
And thanks a lot, sir, for your time.
thank you. Good
Thank
night,
you. Thank you.
everybody. Good night, everybody.